What is up, Nerf Nation? I'm Naptown Nerf, and this is a review on the Open Flywheel Project Eclipse cage. Okay, you guys, so it took me quite a while to do this review. I've already put it into a blaster and done a full firing test of it with many different types of darts. So this is going to be quite a long video, and I will have a clickable timestamp down in the comments pinned. So you can click on that time and it will go to the installation process and troubleshooting. It will go to a full testing, firing demo, and range test, and then it will go to my review. So right now we'll start the overview, and this is a gorgeous cage. It was very well machined. I was very excited to get a couple of these, actually, as only about 100 were made and only I think 61 or so were sold in the United States, at least in the first run. And I will consider this the Gen 1, as there are going to be some changes made for the next run of cages and flywheels. So this cage has a 42 millimeter spacing that has 360 degrees of envelopment over the dart. So it is actually crushing the dart all the way around, which is pretty impressive, and that is why this cage is claiming it can get 200 FPS. And if it can reach 200 FPS, that would be pretty awesome and reach a new level for a single setup flywheel cage. I think this cage is gorgeous. It is CNC'd. It is very nice. It has a dart guide that runs throughout. So this is obviously your dart stop here and guide into the flywheels, and then there's a dart guide out of the flywheels that is completely aluminum. And so I think that's really cool and really pretty, and should help out with accuracy quite a bit, which I think is quite necessary given how much this is crushing the cage. These are also compatible with brushless motors, which is really awesome, and I think if we can find a good brushless option, that is probably the way to go and the best way to run this cage. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but I think that that will probably be the best way to run this cage, although running something brushless can get pretty pricey, and there's a lot of knowledge you need to know to wire up your blaster in that way. So I hope to do that in the future, but for now we will use normal brush motors and get on to the installation. Alright, so we're going to install this guy into an old Stryfe of mine that I already have wired up, except for the cage. So we'll be wiring this up to a Dean's connector and then hooking it up and testing it. We will be using a 2S Titan Hyperion motor that we will overvolt to 3S to get close to that 50,000 RPMs that this thing is recommended to be run at. You need that kind of RPMs to push the dart through, so that puts a lot of strain on this system, and you need a very powerful motor to push that dart through. Now, this is going to get us probably the best performance we can get as of me doing this right now. There are motors coming out, and I'm sure a lot of testing to be done, and I'm sure there's better motors than this to come, but this is what I have on hand, and I don't have a 4S motor to test the Neo Hellcats, which is another possibly good option, although this is supposed to get higher RPMs than even a 4S Hellcat. Won't have quite the torque, but I think this will be pretty good for testing initially. So let's go ahead and put these into this cage, throw the flywheels on, solder her up, and see what we got. So it should be noted that this cage does not come with screws to mount your motors, but they're very cheap. I got a whole bag of them here that I got off of Amazon, and I will put that link in the description box below. So these are pretty easy to get, so no worries there. And they give us many options to screw in depending on the motors and the size of your screws. And this one will be mounted slightly diagonally here because this is what fits this type of screw the best, but that really will not matter at all. So we'll go ahead and lock this thing down. Alright, so we have a bit of an issue with the Eclipse cage, which I'm sure most of you are aware of by now. if you're watching this later on, hopefully this problem has solved itself. But if you do have this problem, this is hopefully how to fix it or figure out if you have the problem. So I have been testing flywheels because these flywheels, the hole for the shaft was not drilled straight on some of the flywheels. Nevertheless, it's misaligned, and we're trying to figure out which flywheels are aligned. And I think I have one here finally that looks like it could be okay. It isn't rubbing on anything when I spin it, so that's a good sign. But the 3 here were bad. The first 2 that I installed were bad, and I've actually broken 2 of the motors installing these flywheels because these are insanely hard to put on. You must have some sort of support piece for the back of your motor, and they make 3D printed ones. I currently don't have one, and I really want to get one, so hopefully I can get a friend to print me off one. But since I don't have one, I've kind of custom made my own with some PVC conduit, and this is the bell end of the conduit, so it's slightly bigger than your normal 3/4 PVC. And then I shoved epoxy putty in there and then put it into the back of one of the broken motors to kind of make a mold, and then so it will support the back of that. So that's kind of what I've done. And so we can put this on the back of here like that, more or less. I mean, it's not perfect, but that should support it. And then we can put our flywheel on the front. Now, if you want to remove the flywheel, it's highly recommended that you have one of these guys, which is a very, very small gear puller. And I'll link to where you can get one of these along with the 3D printed version of the motor cap thing in the description. So recommend one of those. All right, you guys, so let's go ahead and do some testing with the Eclipse cage. I have a giant 3S LiPo in here, which is overvolting these motors to get us around that 50,000 RPMs that we are looking for to get the best performance out of this cage. I have quite a few different types of darts here. Let me go over them real quick. I have AccuFakes from Litake. They were kind enough to send me these for review, so if you're interested in these, definitely check them out in the description. There will be a link there. I also have AccuFakes from Raytheon just to test and see durability-wise or performance-wise if there's any difference between the two. So the Raytheons are the black ones. The Litake ones are the red and gray tipped ones. So also we have some Koosh darts. These are all brand new darts, by the way. None of them have been shot even once. We have Raytheon waffle tip darts and good old Elite darts. So let's go ahead and put these over the chronograph and see what kind of performance we can get. All right, so just to give us a good baseline, we're gonna go ahead and start out with the Elite darts. $185, $197, $190, $193, $202, $198, $186, $200, $190, $178, $205, $194. Very good FPS numbers. Darts went everywhere, so very unusable. Let's move on to the Litake AccuFakes. I probably will not shoot all these for time's sake. 170, 175, 167, 180, 169, 180, 178, 152, 158. Move on to the Raytheon AccuFakes. 163, duplicate 163, 149, 150. And the head flew right off of that one, so I would just disregard that number. The head went flying. I don't know what it calculated on that one. 175. Head completely blew off of that one too. So that one's worthless. It didn't go more than 15 feet. And we have 3 more. Yep. Head blew completely off of that one. Unusable. Head blew completely off of that one. So I would say these darts don't even hold up nearly as well as the light take ones. They are just blowing heads off really quickly. They aren't going more than 10, 15 feet. So moving on to the waffle tipped Raytheon darts. Head blew off of that one too. So the head went about 80 feet and it was 190, but the foam is about 8 feet in front of me. Oh, once again, blew the head right off. Blew the head right off. That one went. We got one good reading, 179 there. Blew the head right off. That one was another good one, 184. Blew the head right off. So, once again, I don't think these are usable. The heads are just blowing right off. Like, the heads will actually go flying pretty far, but the foam is left about 12 feet in front of you, which is kind of hilarious. All right, let's move on to the Koosh, and then we'll go check out our ranges. 184, 163, 188, 179, 174, 188, 182, 143, 179, or 178, excuse me, 161, simmer down there. All right. Okay, so Koosh darts seem to hold up a little bit better, so let's go ahead and check out the ranges and see how many darts have completely been demolished. So as you can see here, this is the foam debris. So we have, this isn't even 8 feet, one of the Raytheon AccuFakes. Then we have a bunch of the waffles that just blew the heads right off here. I mean, these are 13 feet. This is the foam. The heads probably went further. But yeah, there's quite a few darts that just, the heads were just ripped clean off. Like, and most of those were actually the Raytheon darts, which I know people think have better glue or whatever, but at least with this cage, it doesn't seem to be helping out much. So we'll leave those there because those are pretty much worthless. Here's an Elite dart. And that one I know went straight down into the ground because the accuracy with these were really, really bad, and that's to be expected. These are super light darts. The FPS numbers are high, but the accuracy is not so good. It did go straight, but only 36 feet, so not very good there. We have another Elite just short of 45. We have another Elite over here. There's one of the heads to one of the AccuFakes. So the head went 51 feet, and so did this Elite dart. Oh, another head. So another head from one of the AccuFakes. There you go. So kind of funny. Another Elite dart here, just past 63 feet. Then we have one of these light take AccuFakes at just past 71, and another one at 72, and these went super straight as expected with the AccuFakes. They are probably my favorite dart right now. We have a big cluster of stuff right here, so let's check that out. We have 2 Elite darts right around 75 feet, so those actually went pretty straight, which was nice. We have one of the Raytheon AccuFakes just past 77, another one up here around 78. We have a Koosh dart at 78. We have another Raytheon AccuFake just short of 79. We have a light take AccuFake at 80. We have a waffle head, just the head. We have another waffle head, just the head, or just the tip. 84 feet with the Raytheon AccuFake, very straight when they do keep the heads on. Same with the light take AccuFakes at 85 there. And we have 2 more Koosh darts about 86, 87 feet, and one more elite here, just about 87 feet. Look at that accuracy right there, just past 89 feet with an AccuFake. And then we have a ton on down the hill here. We have another Koosh dart, 94, another Koosh just short of 98, another light take AccuFake past 100 feet. So these are all past 100 here. This light take AccuFake's about 101 foot. And then we have a Raytheon Wafflehead, a Koosh, an AccuFake. So these all went over 100 feet. These are probably close to 120. I'm slightly downhill here, but you know, pretty darn good ranges. There's one elite dart, AccuFake, Wafflehead. So when the heads stay on, the AccuFakes and the Waffleheads and even the Kooshes were reasonably straight, which surprised me a little bit. Now, I definitely think the light take AccuFake is probably the best dart out of this test. They seem to keep their heads on better than any other dart and go the straightest. So even though the FPS might not have been quite as good, the ranges were right there and the accuracy was too. So that would be my suggestion for dart. Now this is the red and gray variant. Now, I don't know if the other variants will be better or worse, but these seem to hold up very nicely. I wanted to shoot off a few more of the light take AccuFakes since these seem to be the best darts for this setup. And I just wanted to shoot them just for range and accuracy, just so we don't have to worry about trying to get a good reading over the chronograph and make sure I have a good level shot going here. So here we go. We did lose one head there. We lost a second head. All right, so I did lose 2 heads out of those, I think 9 shots. So they will lose their heads. This is very, very hard on darts. So I'm not saying that the light takes AccuFakes won't lose their heads, but they seem to hold up better than the rest, at least out of the AccuFakes and waffle darts. So let's look at the ranges. They went forever far, most of them. So I got 88 feet with the shortest AccuFake there, then 93, just past 93 actually, and then these are all past 100. Now it is downhill slightly, but still pretty good ranges. I don't know, what is this, probably 110, and this is probably almost close to 120 here, and then one all the way to the pond here. So, and they're all right down the line, guys, right down the line. So that's really impressive. I am actually pretty darn impressed with that performance. And we lost, yes, 2 out of 9. So, you know, actually 2 out of 18, because none of the other ones lost their heads that I shot earlier. So that's not too bad. And this just seems to be my favorite dart, giving the price point of this dart and how they're holding up and how accurate they are. Let's go back inside and I'll give you a very thorough review. Okay, you guys, as you could see, the Eclipse cage did reach that 200 FPS technically, and even though that was with elite darts, I still think the performance was pretty impressive out of the other darts that weren't quite reaching that 200 FPS. And I think with the perfect motor setup and with more well-designed flywheels that are perfectly aligned, because I honestly think that my flywheels are still just a hair off, even though they do work and do not hit the sides of the cage. It's very difficult to get these things exactly perfect, especially when you're working with a dealer overseas. And that's why Phil of Open Flywheel Project is now having the flywheels produced here in the USA. So hopefully the Gen 2 version of these flywheels, and I believe of this cage, will be much better. And I know he knows all these issues, so hopefully they will be resolved in the next version. So if you don't own one of these cages already, you should not have any of these issues, hopefully. So let's start out with actually the cage and the issues I had with the cage, because I don't think those have been stated quite as much as the issues with the Flywheels. The cage is overall really well designed, very well made, but if you like to run worker 22s, you will not be able to do so without modifying your cage, because you cannot get it to go in there, and that is because it actually contacts the dart guide here. This is actually sticking too far out, and the worker dart holder there at the top is actually a slight bit wider, I believe, than the normal Nerf magazines, and it actually contacts. And honestly, the Nerf magazines rub on this too, slightly, so I think this was just out just a couple mil further than it should have been. That's not all though. It actually also rubs on the side here, so it's very, very tight when it goes in, because it actually rubs on the side of the cage. Now this is in the Stryfe. Phil told me when you put it into the Rapidstrike, you actually have a lot more room. I have not tested this in a Rapidstrike, but my understanding is you wouldn't have this problem with this version of cage in a Rapidstrike. So it's a very small error, but one that's significant enough for something that costs, you know, $70, $80. That is significant to me, because when you're spending that much money, you expect things to kind of be perfect. And this was the first run of this. I just think that before it should have gone on sale, maybe there should have been a little more testing done by multiple people that would have given him some feedback and hopefully solved some of these issues before he put these for sale. But hindsight's 2020. I think he's going to learn from his mistakes, and this is the very first time he's produced something like this. He's usually just done 3D printed stuff, so he can refine all these things himself. But when you're putting something that was 3D printed into metal and doing different, you know, things change and happen, so his tolerances, I think, were just a little off, and, you know, I think we can forgive him for that. So hopefully those things will be fixed in the second round, but that is a little unfortunate, and it's a very tight fit, and I do love running my worker 22s because of the capacity, and I definitely are going to have to grind down that cage a little bit, which is going to be a little sad because it's so pretty and I don't really want to ruin it, but I think with the right technique I can do that, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue. So obviously the Flywheels are a very unique design, and given that unique design and how this cage is supposed to work, these things have to be insanely precise and insanely well made. Any little variant will affect the performance quite a bit, in my opinion, and obviously we found that out as the shafts were not drilled exactly perfect, and some of them were actually rubbing the cage. And if you tried to run your motors with that happening, you're going to just destroy your motors. So I always test all my blasters when I'm putting in new flywheels and make sure that flywheel is not contacting the cage before actually running power through it. And that is definitely a good practice to do with all flywheel cages, in my opinion, but especially this one. So I'm excited to see what happens with this next run and see how perfect they get those, because I think that's pretty important for this to work as well as we want it to. Now, the other issue I had with these flywheels is putting them on. Putting them on is insanely hard. Like, I know the Hooligan flywheels were supposed to be hard to get on. Those don't hold a candle compared to these. These things you cannot put on by hand. You cannot put on by hand. And if you try to put them on by hand, you will more than likely break your motors. You will push the shaft out of the back of the motor and completely ruin your motor. And this happened actually to two of my motors. Even after the first one, I was trying to support it by hand, actually with a table, and it doesn't work. So you have to have something supporting your motors, either something like I showed with the PVC and epoxy putty in there, or more than likely the best option is that 3D printed cap that can fit on the back that supports the back of the motor, and then you need to have a C-clamp to be able to press this on, because even with that motor cap, you're going to have a very hard time pushing these on by hand. So I think it would be a good idea for the next run of this cage to be sold with that, because I know a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have access to 3D printers, and I think it would be really nice if they actually sold that 3D printed piece with the cage, because I think that's very, very important to putting these flywheels on properly. The other thing is you have to get these perfectly aligned together and in the middle of that dart guide. So I don't know the exact spacing that's supposed to be, and it would be nice for them to also sell something to get that spacing exactly right, given how hard it is to put these on. Something that keeps you from putting them on too far, or obviously not far enough. So once you get them on too far, it's very difficult to get them back off unless you have that tool I showed, that little toy gear puller, that also is very important if you're going to be trying to get these flywheels off, because they're not easy to get off, guys. They're very difficult to get off, and if you try to pry them off with screwdrivers, you probably will damage your flywheels and make them unusable, and possibly even break your motors doing it. So I recommend using one of those toy gear pullers, even though they are a little bit pricey. Other than that, I think the flywheels are very, very nicely made, and I think they did a pretty good job, turning them, but that drill press they used, or the drill bit they used, was a little bit off, and that's very unfortunate. Phil was nice enough to actually send me quite a few extra flywheels, and that's why I was able to go through them and then find a set that allowed me to do this review. So I'm very thankful for him to do that. He replaced everybody's flywheels that had issues, I do believe. So that is very nice, and I think that's definitely a very good thing to do when you're starting a company. You definitely have to stand behind your product, and if there is problems, you have to fix them. So he's definitely doing that, and I definitely give him great props for doing that. Alright, so obviously these cages and the motors that go with them is a bit of an issue. We have some motors called the Chronos 2 that's coming out that is supposed to be made for this cage, although the amp stall for those is really, really high, and you still have to overvolt them to 3S. It's a 2S motor that needs to be overvolted to 3S, just like the ones that I ran in my test. And you're probably going to burn out the motors sooner rather than later doing that. They are not meant for that high a voltage, and with that much torque and stress on those motors, I just don't see them lasting a very long time. So I do think that if we could find a really good brushless option, those are probably going to be the best option. But maybe we will be able to find a good brushed option that won't have an insane stall rating that also doesn't have to be overvolted. Because I really am not a big fan of overvolting my motors. I just really like things to last. I don't want to have to worry about it breaking mid-war. So let's talk about dart wear. Obviously, when you're running a high crush cage like this, you're going to destroy some darts. That's kind of to be expected, obviously, but you need that dart to at least survive one shot. So picking the right darts is very important. The Litake darts seem to be the best from my testing. Now, that is a pretty small sample size. I didn't run hundreds of darts through there, but they seem to do much better than the Raytheon variants of their waffle head and AccuFake. The Koosh darts seem to do really well in terms of durability. They didn't do so well in terms of accuracy, and just their flight path was a little wobbly because they're a lighter dart than the AccuFake. So that's why I kind of recommend the AccuFake, and also the AccuFake is like at least half the price, if not more, than the Koosh dart. But not just the heads blowing off was the only issue. They actually have a scar mark down one side of the dart. Now, this happened on quite a few darts, and it is probably causing it to get a little less FPS than it could, because that is obviously causing friction when it's going through the cage. And I think the reason for this is it is rubbing on this sharp edge of the cage, where usually there's a solid piece through here on most cages when they have dart guides, but because this has 360-degree envelopment, that is not going to be possible. So I think it actually, the dart squishes out a little bit and catches on this edge. So I may try to file down the corner there and get rid of that sharp edge, and I hope that that will solve that problem slightly. So I do believe that to be the case. I don't know 100% that's the case, but that's my theory. So hopefully that covers everything. I probably have missed a few things. There's quite a bit to go over with this cage. I'm sorry that this video is so long. I hope you are very well informed about what this cage is capable of, the issues it has, and hopefully the things that will be fixed the next generation. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. I spent a ton of time doing this video. These videos are not like the most viewed things on YouTube, so it would really help me out if you smash that like button. And also, please subscribe, guys. If you're not subscribed to this channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you did. I've created a Twitter, so if you're not following me on Twitter, do that. Check out my Facebook page if you're not following that. I also have an Instagram that I post on, so all that is in the description box below. Check out all that information. As always, guys, peace out.